It's time for a cup of coffee with Will and Chris at Slumberland Furniture. From Slumberland Furniture in Osage Beach, here are your hosts, William Holtz and Chris Schneider.
From Slumberland at the Lake, it's this week's cup of coffee. I'm Wild Will.
I'm Uncle Chris.
And we got a good one for you this week. We're just recovering from the great spread we enjoyed at the New Spring Wellness ribbon cutting. We attended that, and we got some great local stories. Hey, Uncle Chris, sports betting, it's going to stay on the ballot in Missouri.
Yep, and I get that confused with the casino, but they're different things. But we'll tell you about that. There's a good chance sports betting is coming to Missouri.
Of course, we'll tell you about that, plus a power boat crashes on the shore again at Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah, and then it disappears.
So we'll tell you about that and a whole lot more on this week's Cup of Coffee. But first, what's happening right here at Slumberland at the Lake?
Hey everybody, Daryl Cunningham with Slumberland Furniture at the Lake. It's football time here in the Midwest. Can you sit and watch football all day long? If not, you need to come check out our comfortable seats here at Slumberland. We have sectionals, we have reclining sofas, and we have the big nice recliners. You need to come see them. They're all on sale. And we have interest-free financing. Don't forget, we deliver the entire lake area. So come see us at Slumberland Furniture, where we're bringing happy home.
All right, so before we even get into this week's show, it's 2024. Hard to believe it's been 23 years since 9/11.
Yeah, it really is. And what the sad thing to me about it is, when it happened, everybody was like, oh, we'll never forget this, never forget. Everybody's forgotten it, right? I mean, it's pretty sad, and it's only been, 23 years?
That or forgotten or joined in on what used to be kind of a conspiracy theory that's now pretty much widely accepted as at least knowledge of from the United States government. But anyway, 23 years ago, most of us remember where we were, and so we remember that day 23 years ago,
Where
September
were you?
11th. I was in 5th grade.
Wow.
And I had to use the restroom. I was in my music class, and so I came back from the restroom, and Mrs. Hess, my 5th grade teacher, she was my music teacher, was out in the hallway, and she was very emotional, and I didn't understand what happened, and I asked her what was going on, and she just kind of ushered me back into the classroom, and at that point in time, there was an all call over the speaker for everybody to come to the auditorium where they announced that there was a state of emergency, that they were going to be busing everybody home early, and then getting home, which was that had never happened before. My parents were both home, and they were, emotional, and, we kind of watched the events unfold, as like everybody on TV. But, I was only 11 years old, 10 years old. And so, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Where were you?
Absolutely. I was living in Dallas at the time, and the night before, I had covered a Texas Rangers game, late night, didn't get home till 1 or so. And so I didn't get up until 8 o'clock, didn't know what was going on, turn on the TV, and of course, that's what I'm hit with. And that was just after the second plane had hit, and I think before the other plane had gone into the Pentagon. So all this was kind of happening, and of course, once you start watching it, you can't leave. I actually went into work that day, and there was nobody on the streets. And of course, there was no sports going on. I was a sports guy. And so it was just eerie and weird and strange and funky. Yeah, it was very strange.
I remember some of the big sports moments following that, when the Yankees played, the Mets played. I remember when Sammy Sosa took the field at Wrigley Field, carrying the flag in the right field. I mean, you just remember the Giants played, the next week because they had a delay. I think they canceled all games that weekend, but most of us, remember if we were alive, and not many events quite like that. But I wanted to note that because as I look at the flight schedule of this week's show, I'm like, man, September 11th through the 17th. I don't even think about it, but yeah, September 11th.
Yeah.
That's an important date in American history.
9/11, absolutely, and hopefully, I think we have forgotten. Hopefully, we will start to remember that again, because, I mean, it's like the JFK assassination or something like that. You have to remember where you were when that happened.
Sure. All right, so now in local stories, kind of about local elections, but you remember Jeff Fernetti won the primary against the incumbent Lisa Thomas for the 123rd district here in the state of Missouri. For the House, well, he's the co-owner and the general manager for Ballparks National. And I don't know if you guys have seen, but he announced he is actually stepping down as GM at Ballparks National.
Yeah, and he's done a great job over there. As you mentioned, he's co-owner, so he has an ownership part there at Ballparks National. So it would make sense that he was also, general manager in management over there. Has done a fantastic job since he's been there. But I think he just kind of decided it's time now that I'm getting into the politics, that's going to be a big part of my life. Maybe I think that is a big job. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. He says maybe, let somebody else do that, move on and start doing some other stuff. And I think he'll be very successful wherever he goes, whatever he does. He seems to be very gregarious, gets along with everybody, seems to be, very up and up guy. So I think he'll do very well.
Yeah, I do too. And I also think it shows a level of commitment to the office. I mean, and to how serious Jeff Fernetti is taking his role. Of course, now it's worth mentioning that on the general election on November 5th, Nancy Bates will be running on the Democratic side. Of course, highly unlikely that you would see a Democratic state representative for this district. But hey, crazier things have happened. But it looks like he'll be taking over for the 123rd district. And as you said, 5 years at Ballparks National, a lot of people don't realize how significant that is for Lake of the Ozarks, for the tourism industry. So for him to step down, again, it just shows how serious he's taking this. And as you alluded to, I think he'll do a pretty good job in that role.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of the November election, man, hard to believe, just a couple months away. It seemed like it was just the start of the year, and we started seeing some of the campaigning between President Biden, who was then the supposed, or everybody thought would have been the Democratic nominee, against President Trump. Here we are in September, less than 9 weeks away from the general election on November 5th.
And I'm kind of surprised things are still as calm as they are, right? I expected this election period time just to be chaotic and crazy. And look back at 2020 and what happened that year. There was COVID brought in. There's a lot of conspiracy theories there, which I don't doubt at all. There were problems with the election night where they stopped counting votes, and then all of a sudden all these millions of votes come in from somewhere. A whole lot of questions about all that still. Well, here we are again, general election time coming up. There's a ton on the line, maybe the future of our country on the line, and it's still been fairly calm. Hopefully it'll stay that way leading up. But we're in just fascinating times. I don't think, well, maybe back in the Civil War time, things were this crazy, but that gives you an idea of how crazy it's been in this country. But we tend to forget there are smaller things on the ballot.
Sure.
Since, the presidential thing is such a big thing. And then here's this, Missouri sports gambling. We've talked about it before. There are other states around Missouri allow gambling. So now folks are trying to get that here. And a judge in Cole County ruled a week ago Friday that Missouri's sports gambling amendment will stay on the ballot this fall. The ruling was issued by Judge Daniel Green, found that the plaintiff failed to provide sufficient credible evidence to disqualify the signatures certified by the Secretary of State's office. So that is going to stay on there. And again, that's a different thing than the casinos, right? The casino thing on the ballot is a whole different thing than this.
Yeah, and we told you either last week or the week before that it was two political advisors that said, hey, they used the old congressional district map, which was used for the 2020 election, which was changed. They were challenging that there were not enough signatures in 6 of the 8 districts. Well, as you alluded to, the Cole County judge ruled on Friday, September 5th, that they didn't have enough evidence to prove that it lacked the signatures. So it stays on the ballot. And as you also said, this is different from the potential 14th casino, which would be on the Osage River, which would be another amendment to the Missouri Constitution, which was initially left off and then now is being added to the November ballot. So both of these things will be on. First, sports betting in the state of Missouri, which has got a ton of support from Bally Sports, from DraftKings and FanDuel, as well as all of the major sports outlets, from the Chiefs, the Cardinals, the Royals, and then the 14th casino along the Osage River, which would change the Missouri Constitution. Currently 13 casinos in the state of Missouri. We're at the max. No other casinos could be in the state of Missouri. Well, this would change the Missouri Constitution, and if this sports betting issue were to pass on November 5th, Amendment number 2 would legalize sports betting in Missouri for those 21 and older as early as December 1st, 2025.
Yeah. One of the interesting things I found about this story was the judge said that the plaintiffs did not prove that the signatures they challenged were actually invalid or that the signatures did not belong to the legal voters. It kind of seems backwards to me that, and I think this is got to be addressed in our political system, in our voting system, that it seems to be easier to cheat and get away with it than to disprove illegal ballots and votes and stuff like that.
And that's not what you're saying happened here.
No, I'm not, but
it very well could
be. Yeah.
I mean, heck, the plaintiffs, as you said, argued that 768 signatures should be invalidated. They said that 95 of those were non-legal voters, and they said that 673 of these were fake signatures or forgeries, and so they probably wouldn't have had time to prove the plaintiffs wrong with that, and so they were just like, you know what, this is you don't provide enough evidence, so it stays on, which is interesting. But man, what a busy last 6 months for Missouri Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft.
Yeah, running for governor, and then all these election things, which did not
lawsuits and
did not turn
appeals.
out well for him in a lot of cases. And back to that election fraud stuff. I mean, I think it was the state of Texas that just removed over 1 million people from their voter rolls because they're invalid. They're either dead or not legal residents or things like that. You would think every state in the union would be keeping up with that because elections are so important, and we find that that's not the case.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so hey, another more local headline which made a lot of attention. A powerboat crashes into the shoreline at Lake of the Ozarks, and this is not the first time we've seen something like this.
This happens way too often. So a powerboat crashed Friday night, early Saturday into the Lake of the Ozarks shoreline. But since then, the boat disappeared, right? Almost the opposite from the last one. Remember the last one that ran up on that sandbar? And it was there for like a year. We were talking about it. Well, this one disappears like in the middle of the night, right? And the Highway Patrol wants to know who took it. I mean, they don't have a clue. The boat, it was a Wright Performance catamaran with twin 400 on the back there, crashed into the riprap around Mallard Point on the 8-mile marker. Presumably somebody on Friday night, early Saturday morning went and got that sucker and took it away, and nobody knows where it is, who it was, what happened. I think there's a picture of it though.
Yeah, this is all courtesy of our friends at Lake Expo. This is a little bit wild. As you said, it's a Wright Performance, but in that particular area, if you're not familiar with the lake area, you could hit some shore and some shallow rocks and run up on the shoreline. So what I saw, because there were a ton of comments, were, hey, I mean, you can't assume somebody's either under the influence or somebody's doing something illegal. I mean, if you run on the shoreline and you're able to get your boat out of there, the only reason that they saw it was because of the Todd Gregg with Lake Spider Netting and his cameras provided these images, so it showed the boat and then the boat is gone. And so when Lake Expo reached out to the Missouri State Highway Patrol, Water Patrol Division, it was their public info officer, Kyle Green, that said that it was removed before they ever even knew it was there, and were even told about the incident. They also did note that the boat was not reported stolen, and there were no injuries reported from the event. Now, they did say they're looking for info on the incident or towing, and you can call 573-751-1000 and leave a message for Corporal Brian Geyer. But the argument is, like, if somebody was not doing anything wrong and they run their boat off and they're able to get it back to shore, back to wherever they have it housed and fix it on their own accord, is that illegal? I mean, do you have to involve law enforcement?
Right.
I mean,
I wouldn't think so.
With your car, do you have to? I mean, is that leaving the scene of an accident, if you hit like something on the side of the road,
Right.
and then you leave and go fix your car, did you break the law?
I don't think so. I think if it's just your car and nobody else is involved, or no destruction of property is involved, something like that, I think you're free to go. I don't think you have to report that. But that's a good question. I was wondering about that too. I mean, why does the Highway Patrol need to find this boat? It doesn't seem like anybody was hurt, or
was there property damage?
Right.
I mean, so, and sometimes, I mean, obviously, everybody wants to know. We're pretty nosy. I mean, just by nature, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
everybody wants to know. You see something like this, you see lots of comments of the last time a boat hit the shoreline and then into the house, and a lot of assumptions are made. But it's like, people don't have any privacy now in this day and age, and it's like some poor guy could have been sober as possible on his way home, and it may not have been great lighting, and he might have hit some shallow rock and went on the shore, and his wife, for all we know, could have come and picked him up with their pontoon and drag. I mean, so it's just so easy to say, oh, the person was hammered, and so if there wasn't property damage, that's kind of my question is like, do you have to find out? I mean, what are you going to be able to prove at this point anyway? So do you just want to not exert the resources? Or
I would think it'd be pretty easy to find out whoever owns that boat, right? Since they got pictures of it and everything.
Well, it's a Doug Wright, and you could reach out to the manufacturer, Doug Wright Power Boats, but they're not going to give you any information on a client of theirs that could possibly incriminate them if there's no criminal activity that's suspected. So I don't think that you're going to be able now, if one of the photos or images showed like a, tag or a license, whatever you would call it.
That'd be easy, yeah.
It would be easy to probably look, but I don't know. I mean, just leave the
I'm
guy.
with you.
Leave
It's
the
like,
guy or gal alone.
Nobody got hurt. Everything's good. So
I'm sure people will be all over us for saying that.
Yeah,
but I'm
we're
like,
idiots.
Man,
We're yahoos.
I'm also a great empath, and I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I'm like, man, it's not easy driving a boat if you're not super familiar.
Especially at night.
I still don't drive a boat because it's intimidating to me.
Yeah.
I'm also probably a sissy lala.
No, I've seen you driving big boats, like big boats.
But that's what trained professionals and
helps, yeah.
very low percentage for risk of injury and things of that nature, right?
And it's like driving a boat at night. We don't go out at night because you can't see what's in the water, and it's just a whole different world when you're boating at night. So
Sure.
Yeah, dangerous.
All right, so huge local headline. Now, we had told you about this a little bit over the last few months, but the Tri-County lodging tax has still been being collected while the TCLA appealed the Supreme Court's decision to disband the Tri-County Lodging Association and said the lodging tax was unconstitutional. Well, that's no more. Camden County Presiding Commissioner Ike Skelton said that the Tri-County Lodging District no longer exists, as it's unconstitutional, and all lodging or all taxing should stop immediately. And this was said at last Thursday's commission meeting in Camden County. And they also said the county is now working to make sure that the lodging tax that was collected during the Supreme Court's deciding time to go back to the businesses who actually paid it, and then those businesses will be responsible for getting it back to the people that foot that lodging tax to begin with. So this is super complicated.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to know who to give that money back to.
Sure, and so I reached out to the commission to kind of get a little more information and find out. And it appears that there's a lot of questions unanswered on their end because it's unclear at this point how long since it's deemed unconstitutional. Well, it's been around for a while. So are you talking about since its inception? Are you talking about just while the Supreme Court was deciding the appeal? And so then after that's figured and given back to the lodging partners or to the lodging establishments, how would they be able to go back and return that 8% or whatever, 3% back to the people who paid it? And so a lot of questions to be answered, but it is clear that there is no more lodging tax. It is ceased, and there will be no more collecting of the lodging tax in Camden County, in the Tri-County area. And so questions will be answered as far as what happens to that organization, what happens to the building that's shared with the Lake of the Ozarks CVB. And I mean, just so many things that we'll wait to find out. And one of the things, Chris, I know there's been some controversy on this, and there's people that are happy about this, there's some people that are upset about this, but either way that you look at this, the Lake of the Ozarks will lose funding from the state of Missouri through the Missouri Division of Tourism matching grant to market and promote the Lake of the Ozarks across the country. So we're talking like billboards in Chicago and Quincy, Illinois, Kansas City, St. Louis, through the Kansas City Chiefs, through the St. Louis Cardinals. And so that's a big amount of finances that used to come down through this area to promote and market the Lake of the Ozarks across the country, especially the Midwest, that now is going to go away and I would think have to be replaced, or efforts to replace that would have to be enacted. And so I'm not so sure that it was under Jim DeVincent's leadership set up properly. And I think there was a lot of things that people didn't like. But man, that is a lot of money that used to promote the Lake of the Ozarks, whether we agree with what the spends were. It's just a lot of money that's not going to be marketing this area across the country.
So I think the challenge is going to be for local leaders is to figure out, okay, so that's going away and the TCLA is going away. Whether, they did a good job or a bad job, that's, a whole different story. But if we still want to promote Lake of the Ozarks widely, how are we going to do that? So it's going to be people like Jeff Vernetti, the new state representative, if he gets voted in the general election, that he's going to have to sit down with community leaders, with people like Lake TV and go, okay, so how do we promote the Lake of the Ozarks continually to, keep that inflow of vacationers and stuff here? It's going to take some leadership, it's going to take some wisdom, but it's not going to be a hard thing to do if people come together and do it. Lake of the Ozarks had some great business people, and there's a ton of money here. So there's no reason why we can't figure out how to continue to do that.
Sure. So that'll be interesting to see too, just like what they end up deciding, how long the lodging tax was collected that has to be returned. And so we'll continue to keep you posted. A lot of unanswered questions.
That looks
at this
like
point
a
in
mess.
time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, other local headlines you remember back in 2021, Memorial Day weekend, tragic shooting, fatal shooting at Lazy Gators. Chad Brewer, 32, from Jefferson City. He actually avoids a jury trial. Believe it or not, he entered a plea in Camden County Court, a guilty plea to voluntary manslaughter, a Class B felony, armed criminal action, and delivery of a controlled substance. His initial charges, you'll remember, were first-degree murder, and he was looking at life potentially worse. And so he entered this plea Thursday in front of the Honorable Judge Kenneth Hayden, and the Honorable Judge Kenneth Hayden ordered 15 years for count one for the voluntary manslaughter and 10 years for the armed criminal action. Those will be served consecutively, so 25 years in all. And then the 10-year drug charge will be served concurrently with the first two charges, so we'll stay at 25 years.
Yeah.
And he was transferred to the Fulton Reception and Diagnostic Center after that hearing.
It's amazing to me how long it takes these things. I mean, that was, 3 years ago, and here we finally get, a judgment. Has he been in jail the whole time? I wonder?
Absolutely.
Interesting, yeah. So, I mean, it takes a while. So much for speedy trials these days, right? But looks like, that he pled guilty, so it looks like that was a slam dunk there. So
sure, and there's always more to it than you realize as far as, man, why didn't you go to a jury trial? Well, there might have been evidence that was lacking, or there might be a key witness that couldn't appear. And so if you go to a jury trial, there's a chance he gets off with way less than that. You exert a lot of the county's resources, and so to get him locked away for 25 years minimum, they consider that a win. You don't always know all the details.
Right.
I mean, it's not Law and Order like we see on TV that we so often like to
not as cut and dried in 60 minutes, right?
Right. All right. So hey, we had a great time just today at the New Spring Wellness ribbon cutting and celebrating their new location. And of course, you remember where they've been. They moved off of KK here recently, and just a beautiful building. They still got all the same great services you're used to, from the vitamin IV drip treatments, which you and I got, our Myers cocktail. They also have their auricular therapy treatment, which is, hey, you want to stop smoking? They've got that. NAD, all kinds of different products and services there. They got a pretty inspiring story. If you don't know it, it's worth going by and talking to Chad and Katie. But they're pushing and excited about some really cool new services there. They've got the hyperbaric chamber, which is great. I've done that a couple of times.
I've been in there, yeah.
I need to do it more often because I love how you feel later that night. The red light therapy, I know a lot of women have really started to take advantage of that. And then they've got that laser hair removal, which another one that women love. And then they True You Aesthetics. They were doing some really cool giveaways there. And then they had the Lake West Chamber, the Lake Area Chamber, and the Camdenton Area Chamber, all there for this joint ribbon cutting, celebrating their new location. And I noticed that you were taking full advantage of the Gerbs catered meat and cheese tray over in the corner.
Yeah, can't beat that stuff, right? It's good stuff. And, you know, we go to New Spring Wellness Center every week, you know, to get a vitamin IV drip, you know, just helps you stay strong and feeling better and wards off, you know, different illnesses and stuff like that. But we love Chad and Katie. They're just some of the neatest people in town. So, you know, if you think you need some help, or if you're addicted to something you need some help getting off of, they can probably help you out.
Sure, and I also say Crystal, our nurse every week, is pretty amazing.
She's great. Yeah.
And if she's out doing the mobile drips on Tuesday, which I'm not sure she does that by accident.
I told her she couldn't do that anymore.
I did too, but Brooke does a great job as well. But seriously, Julie as well, their whole staff treats you like family. Go by and see them because obviously you're too late to attend their ribbon cutting. And who knows, maybe we saw you there as well, but great time. And as we round up this week's show, we do have a really cool, interesting headline. It's your LOZ Rumor Mill, brought to you by our friends at the LOZ app. And I was pretty surprised when I saw this Lake Expo headline. Jellyfish in the Lake of the Ozarks. Is that real?
There's a rumor that there are jellyfish in the lake, right? And to me, when I heard that, is like, no, that's not true, right? Because those jellyfish can be dangerous. Those things can really hurt you. Well, apparently there are. I was wrong, right?
Sure.
So the story says in July, August, September, the most common months to spot these tiny freshwater jellyfish, right? Since the small polyps only form into this, what they call the medusa phase, right? When they're actually jellyfish. When the temperature gets around 80 degrees, the water temperature. That's starting to cool off again now. But when it gets up there hot, these jellyfish come out. They're only between a ½ inch to an inch, right? So they're pretty tiny. And they cannot harm humans. This was what made me really happy, because those jellyfish, in the Gulf and in the sea, they can kill you.
I was finally going to leave the Lake of the Ozarks. They can't harm you. So
They can't harm you. They can still sting, but apparently they're so small they really can't get through our skin. So as a general rule, we don't get hurt by these jellyfish. But it's true, not just a rumor. There are these jellyfish. Apparently they come from China, from the Yangtze River in China.
And they eat microscopic organisms, worms, and even larval fish. But the Missouri Department of Conservation says that while the freshwater jellyfish's tentacles do sting the same way as their ocean cousins, they don't appear able to penetrate the human skin. Now, some people have reported a little itching or redness, but after coming in contact, the MDC says that most folks don't have any kind of effect at all.
Right. That's good to know. Yeah.
Kind of wild. I was not expecting that. So those of you that see this and are like, wait, what? We're getting ready to go on our first trip down to Lake of the Ozarks, enjoy some late summer boating. Don't worry, they're not going to hurt you. All right, so look, lots of great stuff happening on Lake TV. We're getting ready to head into the fall season, which means Uncle Chris and I will be getting ready for some Turkey Fest, some Apple Fest, some warm pie. It's football season.
Yeah.
Lake TV's got you covered. We're going to be in Camdenton this Friday night, where the Lakers, who are 1-1, are going to play host to the Smith Cotton Tigers. And I'm telling you what, although Camdenton lost down in Branson on Friday, they're 1-1 on the season. And quarterback Durnan, man, I'll tell you what, the Durnans just keep coming year after year after year.
I think this is the last Durnan, though.
Yeah, so we'll have a lot of great action for you, starting with the Central Ozarks Medical Center pregame show this Friday at 6:30. Mike Bissell and I will be on the call. Plus, don't miss our Central Ozarks Medical Center coaches show. You get a chance to talk with Coach Parr Pitts and Shannon Jolly. And can you give us a little insight what this week's show entailed?
Yeah, Coach Parr Pitts was not happy with his Lakers after that loss in Branson, getting ready for the home opener. And then Shannon Jolly and the Osage Indians are 2-0, off to a great start. And they've got a huge game Friday night at Blair Oaks, perennial power. And the Indians actually have a chance to knock them off this year.
Osage is going to win.
Wow.
Osage is going to win.
That should be a great game.
29-24 Indians.
I'm with you, brother. I hope you're right.
Hey, don't miss Happy Hour with DJ Kyle each week on Lake TV, and lots of good stuff, including the Lake TV Community Spotlight Show. I know you have a couple of guests from the Greens Mill Bridge on. From Slumberland at the Lake, that's this week's Cup of Coffee.